Good evening, everyone. Thank you very much, Peter, for the introduction. And I'm looking forward to talking to you a little bit about smart facilities management. So without further ado, I talk in this presentation a bit about True FM, and I use the term from experience that facilities management means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. And that's quite reasonable, actually, depending on where you're standing and looking at it. But True FM is really about strategic and tactical management. And I also believe it's very much people-oriented, or should be, because our business is fundamentally all about people and the different people involved in different stakeholder groups that we interface with and we serve and we support and we affect in terms of what we do and how we do it. Whatever we do in a True FM context, it should be about optimization of the processes and procedures that we work to in order to give consistency to what we do. But they should also be contributing always to the sustainability of the organization, of the environment, of the health and safety of the communities that we serve. So as I said, a part of our role in a True FM context is about always looking for gain towards efficiency and effectiveness, and they're different things. And in order to do so, we should be process driven. And I'll come on and talk a bit more about that when I talk about international standards in facilities management. But this event is about digital context, and we believe very much within key facilities management, where I work, about technology is an inherent part of the future of facilities management. So in a True FM context, we believe those technologies need to be certainly fit for purpose, but also adaptive in terms of how they approach the role that we take, and scalable technologies. And again, I'll come back to that a little bit in a moment. In the introduction to this, I referenced there's no such thing as a smart building, and there isn't, because first of all, they're nothing new. There's some pictures of some smart buildings. At least they were smart at the time that they were constructed, about 6,000 years ago, and they were fit for purpose. And you'll see in the bottom picture, the water that they are right beside is the Atlantic Ocean and all the weather that comes from that. And yet this community built these houses there and survived, as did their buildings. So in some respects, they were pretty smart buildings because they survived 6,000 years, better than most we would anticipate these days. There are, however, smart technologies and systems in buildings, and I think the term smart buildings gets a little bit mixed between those systems which do and have done for many, many years support how the building environment is controlled in a smart context. And that's been proven ever since the Industrial Revolutions that started way back with the steam engine and came on to manufacturing efficiency, and then developed into the electronic control mechanisms that we've all used for as long as we can remember. However, I believe the Industrial Revolution 4.0 provides us within FM with fantastic opportunities to take what's already there in terms of smart buildings and to do much, much more. Because at the end of the day, a building for facilities managers is just another tool. And it's how we adapt and utilize that tool, along with the many other tools that we have, is what I believe gives us what I'm calling True FM, and what, with the harnessing of the new technologies that are available to us, which again I'll talk about in a moment, has the potential of creating smart FM, where we can really demonstrate and evidence value to the demand organisations that we serve, and how we utilise those smart buildings better and more efficiently and more effectively. However, we can have smart FM, we can have smart building systems, we can have smart buildings, if you like, but what we actually need is some smart people. And FM is very much the new kid on the block in the built environment professional sector. And we need to do much, much more about educating and providing support to the people who are in facilities management. The one thing that I've always said and passionately believe, that none of us in FM have got all the answers to anything. It's far too far a diverse scope of activities that we can potentially be responsible for. And the people who think they have all the answers are the people who are going to make big mistakes potentially, or as a minimum not deliver the potential that they could deliver to the organisations that they serve. So there's always a need in FM, and I've been in FM for over 30 years, and I'm still learning, and I'm still finding skills and competencies that I don't have, that I know I can enhance and enable me to do what I do better. And I do that in some respect through networking, through conferences, and these days it's conferences such as we're doing right now, where we can listen to other people's perspectives and advice and knowledge and skills to learn from, because we can all learn from each other. And that's where these conferences and networking are very, very important. And of course, we've got the professional associations that are emerging all over the world. Today, we are in facilities management still one of the fastest growing professional disciplines worldwide. And that is evidenced by a lot of the professional associations that are emerging in order to support individuals within their own countries and regions in terms of enhancing that knowledge and expertise. And of course, there's training and education. I might used to have said I'm too old to go for another training course or another qualification, but in reality, I'm not. And I actually quite enjoy it, because I enjoy it when I can go and learn a bit more about a particular aspect of the facilities management scope that is not my forte. I've always said that when asked what do I believe one of the key skills are to be successful in FM, and I believe it's not about what you know, it's about what you don't know, and making sure that you draw the line and don't step across it where you step into incompetency. And that's very easy to do in facilities management because of that diversity of roles and responsibilities that we can typically become responsible for. So going back to my first bullet, none of us have all the answers to anything, and making sure that we continue to progress in our knowledge experience in what we do, and interface and network with our colleagues to be more aware, because whatever problem you have in FM, somebody else has already had it. So where can you go and tap into that experience and gain a benefit from it? But training and education is where you can be a bit more specific and a bit more pointed in terms of specific skills and competencies and awareness, in order to keep adding to that breadth of knowledge that makes us good at what we do within a facilities management context. And there are lots of organisations all over the regions in the world who can offer you those particular opportunities. So a little bit about international standards in FM. And interesting, when I typically talk to conferences where we're all face-to-face, I always ask people to raise their hand if they've read an international standard in facilities management. And on one or two occasions, no hands have ever gone up. And that's kind of crazy from what I've just been saying about smart people, because what we've been doing in development of international standards as FM is try and provide all of us within the FM community with the benchmark standards in any particular topic, so that you don't have to go and reinvent that particular wheel. This map shows the countries that are currently engaged in developing those standards through the ISO Technical Committee 267. And I'm currently the chairman of that committee. And that committee has only been in existence since 2012. It was formally launched. And I'll show you in a moment some of the work that we've done. But I would strongly recommend that if you haven't tapped into some of these standards, that it's well worth doing so. And there are lots of my colleagues who are on those committees, that standards committee, who talk at different conferences and seminars all over the world. So highly recommend, if you see an opportunity on a webinar or a seminar, to go and listen to some of my colleagues in that respect. Take that opportunity, because what we've done in this international committee is take best knowledge, if you like, from 48 countries around the world to come and address different aspects of facilities management. And as you can see from that map, we are fairly represented geographically around the world. So as I said, 48 countries' views on what is facilities management and what is best practice in facilities management, if there ever is such a thing. The first, or the flagship standard that we created is ISO 41001. And this is what is called in the standards world a management system standard. In other words, it is a standard to support us all in FM about how to go about structuring and proceeding with the management of whatever the remit, the scope, the diversity of requirements that our demand organisation has asked of us. So it gives you a methodology in how to approach that. It gives you clear direction in how to do that. And this is a management system standard similar to ISO 9001 for quality management, which most people will be aware of because it's the biggest management system standard in the world. But this standard is totally focused, the equivalent is totally focused on facilities management. Very worthwhile, and for those organizations that wish to do so, you can get audited and certificated as compliant with this standard, and that demonstrates to your organization that you serve or to the client organizations that you happen to be delivering FM to, that you are a quality oriented organization and focused on the delivery of efficient and effective FM. So it's very broad ranging, and it has to be because FM is. But anyway, that's the flagship standard that we've created. But in addition to that, you'll see here various other standards that we've already developed, and most of these are published. The first one was vocabulary, where we need to talk the same language within FM. And I'm not talking about Arabic or English, I'm talking about FM speak, so that we understand each other as well as the people that we serve. 41012 is about strategic sourcing and also how to create an FM agreement between yourself and the demand organisation, whether you're an in-house team or whether you're an outsourced provider. And that's a very useful document about the discussions and things you should understand between the two parties before you start. 41013 is about the benefits, the scope potential of FM. 41014 has just recently been published this year, and it's about how to develop an FM strategy And part of 41001 management system standard is you should have an FM strategy, because only thereafter can you develop policies and procedures, etc. 41,015, 16 and 17, these are not published yet, but they're in progress. Influencing organisational behaviours, 41,015 is a very, very interesting standard that's taxing us a little bit to try and make it worthwhile, but it's in progress and should be published next year. 41,016 is about technology in FM. I'll come back to that in a moment. And the one that's just starting is the management of epidemic in the workplace. So given the COVID experience that we all have today, we've decided to capture all the knowledge and experience that we have from around the world and put them into a standard so that when the next epidemic comes along, because COVID is not the first, it's far from it, it's number 19 actually. So when number 20 comes along, or the people that follow us in the FM world will have something against which they can be prepared in advance as best they can. So I said I'd come back to 41,016. This is a standard and a technical report that we are working on right now, and it's at a fairly advanced stage. And this is all about putting some method into the madness. Technology is something that for most of us in FM, we're not technology people per se. We're practical people about managing and delivering services and service support. So technology starts to come as a bit of a curveball for most of us. So we said, well, why don't we create a technical report to try and help the facilities manager understand what he can do, how he might want to approach it. And this periodic table that we've created is based on trying to focus on what is it we need to know. Because when it comes to technology, I know I speak for myself, I don't know what I don't know. So we're creating this technical report in order to try and help the practicing facilities manager about how can he go about the selection, the development of the implementation, the ongoing maintenance and support of technology to give him that opportunity that I talked about earlier, and I'll come back to in a moment. So this is a very interesting document that's currently being developed. And there's a couple of quotes here that I thought were quite new and relevant to us as facilities managers. And this one is really about new technology rolls over you, because it will. The Industrial Revolution 4.0 is happening. As an organization in my day job, we're already delivering this to several organizations around the world. And the message to all of you out there is, if you're not part of the steamroller, you will be part of the road, because it's going to happen whether you like it or not. And the second one that I like is, and I've always believed this, technology is a useful servant, but it's a dangerous master. Don't adopt technology for technology's sake. Understand how it's going to add value to your role in an FM context. And then hopefully we're going to provide you through 41,016 with some advice and tools in order to make sure that the technology that you do embrace is going to work for you. Simply like the smart building, it's just another tool. And we need to make sure that how we select that, we do that properly. So what is smart FM? And I'm a great believer, a picture says 1,000 words, and I tend to talk too much anyway. So I'm just trying to explain what I mean by smart FM by showing you a little graphic. So there's my smart building that really isn't that smart. And as you can see there, if it stands on its own, it's not smart at all. It doesn't do anything. But it is a tool to help us deliver what we need to deliver in FM to the organizations that we serve. So let's take some of those sensors, that Internet of Things opportunity that's now with us, 100% with us and active and being used, and start to capture relevant FM for FM. Relevant data for FM. And that now changes the smart building to stop being quite so static and starts to create raw data. Now, what I would say about raw data, that's as intelligent, in fact, less intelligent than my smart building there, because raw data is useless unless you are able to do something with it. So therefore, when you get that data, what you need to be figuring out is how does that data feed into an engine? Now, the icon there, the engine for some of you might simply be you. It might be the data has to be interpreted by you as an individual. Within Key Facilities Management, we have developed a technology engine. We brought on board a couple of years ago data scientists to try and help us understand what we need to do with that data to create something that's meaningful to facilities management. So into that engine, we also have to feed in the configuration of that data and the standards against which we're trying to deliver FM. So that comes back and connects with some of our ISO standards, but also the standards of the organization, the standards that are regulation and arbitrary in the country in which you operate, and the standards of you and your FM team in terms of how you want to try and do what you're there to do. But also you need to then feed into that engine some of the human side of facilities management. So you need to make sure that it reflects what you as an individual facilities manager or FM team want to try and deliver to the different communities and stakeholder groups that you're there fundamentally to serve. So that engine needs to get, these disparate inputs in order for it to produce something that for FM is going to be useful and beneficial ultimately to the client or demand organization. So once that engine has crunched all of that information and data, it needs to output that into something. And in our case, it's Keystone System Technology, where that receives that output, that data output, and ultimately then presents that into a format that we can understand. So that technology takes the output, formats it in a format that me as a technology agnostic individual can kind of get my head around and understand and start to relate that to how I can make that work for what I'm trying to do for my clients and customers and stakeholder groups. And then from that, you can start to develop that and present that in a way that those communities and those stakeholder groups can in turn understand what it is we've tried to do. So I hope that's helpful, because it's not a straightforward exercise. You don't just go and buy a couple of sensors and stick them on a wall and think that's going to make a difference. It's much more sophisticated than that if you're going to add the real value potential that technology today offers us. So if you manage to do all of that, this is some examples of the kind of information that you can get out of that approach to digitization, and present that in the way that's appropriate for whatever stakeholder groups you're trying to communicate with, whether that's just you and your team in order to get the ammunition to go and alert you and focus your efforts in any particular area, or whether that's the different stakeholder groups that we are there to serve. And there's at least 5 completely different stakeholder groups that we have to serve typically in FM. So it'll give you executive dashboards, and as you can see from the top left-hand side, it can give the CEO of the corporation a global view on how his facilities are performing based on whatever criteria is appropriate. Lower left, what's stated there is expert insights. So whether it's the workplace occupancy, whether it's well-being and wellness of the people that occupy those workplaces, whether it's compliance with standards, or just simply benchmarking things like energy in the top right there, where you can track and monitor. And then down in the bottom right, what this is all about, and this is part of ISO 41001, it has to be all about performance improvement. Facilities management is not about keeping the wheels turning. Facilities management is all about getting the oil can on the bearing and making them turn faster, smoother, with less impact in terms of the core organizational activities that we have to serve. And measurement of performance has to always be seen as a positive. If we are always in the green, it's not a time to sit back and say we've done it. It's a time to say, well, how can we enhance this? How can we enhance customer service? How can we enhance sustainability or environmental impact, etc., etc. And today, in the situation that we're all in with COVID and this pandemic, we're actually already using this technology to monitor the environment, to monitor filtration of our air handling systems, to monitor and alert social distancing where that is compromised within a workplace. And all of that is not just important from a health and safety aspect. It's also important from a well-being and giving the people that we're shortly going to be asking to come back into the workplace where we've had to keep them out up until now, giving them confidence in terms of how we as a professional, strategic professional function in FM are proactively managing that workplace to make sure that they're safe, to make sure that they can continue to be productive. And likewise for the owners and developers of these facilities, we can help them in terms of downsizing space or whatever, and justifying that. And the big thing that's important in all of this that's on the screen is it's not perception, it's fact, it's evidence, it's based on real data. So you start to make in FM decisions based on evidence, not simply we think this is a good idea. And that makes a huge difference to how you will be perceived in your organizations and with the clients that you're trying to service, if that's who you are in terms of a facilities management organization. So quickly, the conclusion, I started this off by talking about SMART FM, smart facilities management. And I believe it's that combination. If you take those principles of true FM around people orientation, about process and being process driven, but not necessarily driven by process, but making sure there's a consistency in what we do in terms of delivering those efficiencies and that effectiveness, in managing those assets proactively and not reactively. And the technology can help us do that so much easier. So planned preventative maintenance becomes old hat, because what you can do now is do predictive maintenance. So don't go and maintain the asset until the asset tells you, I need maintained. And then if you adopt that true FM approach to all of that, I believe that is smart FM. And smart FM is what's going to deliver real value to our economies, our countries, to people, who occupy those facilities, and to people and communities who have to live with the impact of how well or how badly we manage those facilities. And that for me is smart FM. And if we do that, or at least go on the journey towards that, then I think we will make the strategic professional impact that I believe facilities management has to offer, all in the communities that we serve. Thank you for listening, and I'm now happy to hand over and take any questions about what I've just said. Thank you.
Thanks for that, Stan. As always, it's great to listen to you and hear your perspective. And every time I listen to you, you always give me something new to think about. So thank you very much for the presentation. I have to say, I love that periodic table. That's just great. Really good. Stan, I've got a few questions for you. With regards to the ISO 41001 management system and the other suites that are available, they're quite sizable chunks of work to tackle and to implement. What would you suggest is the way that organisations should go about it, and what are the key focuses that they should look towards working with?
I suspect the real answer to that would depend on who the organisation is and where they are on their FM journey. And different parts of the world will perceive themselves to be more mature than perhaps other parts of the world, and you can apply that same logic to organisations. From an ISO perspective, the place to start is most definitely with ISO 41001, because that is the management system standard that I was talking about. And what that provides every FM organisation, whether it's an in-house or an external, it doesn't really matter. It provides a framework and a logic about how to structure the delivery of FM in a manner that will be consistent, that will be appropriate, because for those in the market who have several different clients to serve, every client, as they will know, wants something slightly different from FM. So the framework in 41001 can adapt to any type of particular client demands, and therefore drives you in terms of structuring how you deliver what you deliver in an appropriate manner. And in ISO 41012, within that, there is a part of that which is strategic sourcing, but the other part of that standard is about FM agreements. And I would recommend to everybody in FM, take that standard, look at that framework for dialogue between the FM function and the demand organization function, and it just makes you ask the right questions of each other to ensure that there's clarity in terms of what it is we're trying to achieve in FM. So those would be the first two documents I would recommend in terms of the ISO standards for any FM operation to engage with that good practice guide.
Yeah, okay. All right. We've had a question come in, and somebody's asking, is there a cost standard within the 41,000 series?
Quick answer is no, there's not, but there is not a cost standard for good reason. And this is most definitely on the agenda for the 41,000 series of standards. If you want to bring cost into the equation, because we all have to deal with it, it's normally top of the list in terms of priorities for our demand organizations. Whether it should be or not is another debate. But if you want to bring it in, there's only one way you can bring it in a meaningful way, and that's where you can truly benchmark across what we do. And cost is only one element of how you would achieve that benchmarking. So you need to quantify and qualitative measurements about what you deliver in FM before you can associate cost with it. Because the cost of an asset that's made out of cardboard is different than the cost of an asset that's made out of oak. And so what's the relevance of the cost other than the client wants you to minimize it? So a bit long-winded answer to the question. We looked at it already. And we probably, at the time, we thought, well, why don't we just align ourselves with the financial sector and how they categorize cost? But there's little value in that until we put the other measurements in place and the other criteria against which you can somehow measure cost and cost effectiveness.
Yeah, okay, all right. I think in the various roles that you've had, both within your own business and also being chair of the various associations and leading the standard work that you've done as chair, I guess that you've seen a lot of changes take place. And from your point of view, from a leadership perspective, how do you see that FM delivery staff need to change in the future?
Good question. And I feel very strongly about this because I have worked all over the world in my day job, but I've also spoken to lots of communities, FM communities around the world. And one of the biggest barriers that I find that we have, most of us in FM today, and this is obviously changing, I'm glad to say that, but most of us have come from other disciplines. So whether it be architectural, surveying, engineering, whatever. And in those disciplines, the rule book about what we do is fairly clear. I happen to be an engineer in my original discipline, and engineers tend to very much be black and white. It works or it doesn't work. And if it's not working as well as it should, we can do something about it. FM isn't like that. And that's one of the biggest challenges that we all have. FM is not just about getting the lights to come on. FM is about, is it the right light at the right lighting level for the people doing the particular tasks in that space? And can we make it more efficient lighting and reduce the cost burden to the overhead? So that's FM. So when I make the comparison between engineering, a lot of us come from that technical background where we might be black and white. FM is all shades of gray. And if we can help our people at every level to get a better understanding that FM is about people, it's not about the lights and the boilers or the air conditioning. It's actually about people and giving the people that we serve the right working environment for them to be productive. And that has no boundaries to it as to what that can embrace and entail in trying to do that.
You started your answer with something that kind of provokes emotion. I forget the exact words that you used, but kind of something that you feel passionate about. And I'm going to ask you a question now that will probably stoke a similar level of emotion. I think what we're doing is we always use the term FM, we discuss FM, but we're seeing the word workplace or workspace coming through quite prevalently now into our work, into the work that FM people are doing. And I've got to ask you, Stan, from your point of view, what's your perspective on this? Is it the same? Is it just a new name, or is it something different? And if it is different, do you see it evolving alongside FM?
Okay. The institute that I was involved in from the very beginning was the British Institute of Facilities Management, which is now called the Institute of Workplace and Facilities Management.
Hence the question.
Yeah. Personally, I do understand the reason and the logic behind that name change, and I'm not against it, but I think we are confusing the marketplace. Facilities management is something for 35 years that we've been trying to establish as a recognizable discipline. So what did we call each other before facilities management? We were maintenance managers, we were security managers, we were cleaning managers. And there was a logic about bringing all of that together under a single term that was facilities management or facility management. It doesn't matter. The two are basically the same. So we've invested 30 odd years of creating a banner under which we can now collectively, with all those technical disciplines, take a single discipline forward, professionalize it. And we've done that by universities that can give us degrees in FM. We've done it by having all these associations locally like MEFMA or IWFM or IFMA. And we've done it by creating international standards, because that's what every strategic professional discipline needs. And then all of a sudden somebody wants to add a new name to it. I think it's crazy, personally, because here we are trying to build awareness of who we are and what we do and the diversity of it. And then there's a specific community that wants to narrow it back down and give it a new label. So having said that, workplace has always been and always will be part of FM, but only part. And for those that want to specialize in security or maintenance or workplace, no problem at all. But for me, it's just an inherent part of what FM is. And I'm not sure we do ourselves any favors by coming up with new names.
That's really great. I think it's just an interesting discussion, because I think that it doesn't matter whether you come from facility side of the built environment, or you come from the property side of the built environment. So if you speak to FM through IWFM, IFMA, MEFMA, or you speak through to maybe Corner, each team is trying to claim that space. And at the minute, I fully agree with you. It hasn't been fully shaped. I think it's up for the taking, but it'll be interesting to see how this evolves over the coming years. And you did touch on a really interesting point, Stan, that I think both you and I will be able to resonate with and recall, is how we moved years ago from single services. You mentioned security, cleaning, pest control, and so on. And what we saw was that bundle services came in, where organisations, catering companies were buying cleaning companies and so on. And we saw some bundling, and then we moved into TFM and IFM. And now we're at a stage where we're now talking about digitalisation and digital transformation. Those were milestones in their day that we had to overcome. Do you think that this era that we're currently living in and that we're working in, is going to be regarded as the next new milestone that we're working through?
I don't think there's a shadow of doubt about that. And I talked about it in the presentation, these technologies that are live now today, and as a company, Key Facilities Management is using them internationally. They are going to transform the ability of FM to evidence the potential of making us more efficient, more effective, utilize space more. And today is a very good example with COVID, where that technology and within KFM that we've been utilizing for several years, that technology was very, very easily harnessed as a tool for managing the COVID implications of the workplace. So we are already measuring social distancing. We're already identifying bottlenecks and hotspots where people can't social distance. We're already identifying the hygiene levels of performance, the utilization of the common parts of any given building or toilet areas or whatever it might be. So that technology is so flexible and adaptable that, to me, it will be an inherent part of FM going forward. I don't think there's any doubt about that whatsoever.
I guess it's just a question of how we adopt it and what we do with it, I guess, in the meantime, to make it come to life and understand it.
And I think that's the important thing about it. As I said on the presentation, I don't believe in technology for technology's sake, but I 100% believe in technology that will add value to FM. So my whole presentation was about smart FM. So unless it makes me smarter, why would I want to invest in technology? And the technology at the end of the day is just one other tool, the same as that so-called smart building.
Well, listen, Stan, I mean, as ever, I really appreciate your time and giving up, the time to do the presentation and come and talk to us. And, for me personally, and for all our listeners, every time you speak, you're extremely thought-provoking. So I thank you for your time. And I think that just on behalf of the industry, I think that, not for me to say, but, the impact that you've had in the work that you've done is just incalculable. We really appreciate your efforts in terms of the way that you've driven the new standards through to market. So on behalf of us all, Really appreciate it. Thank you very much for all your efforts. And once again, it's been great speaking to you. So thank you, Stan.
Thank you for the kind words. At the end of the day, I'm just an FM guy, but somebody challenged me in 1990 to say, you guys in FM will never be taken seriously until you have international standards, and that was what clicked for me, and the rest is history, as it were. So I would recommend to people, look at them, become part of them. We want people to bring their knowledge and experience to help us develop the ones of the future. So anyway, thank you for that, and look forward to hearing much more about UAE and the development within the Middle East.
Great. Thanks again, Stan.